Hello, my name is Nadine and welcome to Hop Along Studio. So this week on my website, I wrote about the 4 lessons I learned from the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. This book was part of the 12-book reading list I had for 2020. I chose 12 books that I would like to read this year to be able to work on some of my own personal growth. The reason I chose this particular book was because it was recommended to me a few years ago by a friend, and as well it was part of my husband's reading list for his work. And so usually when I get a couple recommendations, I'm more than willing to look into a book and give it a read. This book itself is about leadership and a little bit about marketing and how companies operate, but it's also about more than that. It's about how we make our decisions. It's about how do we find our personal why in life and how do we find that sense of purpose. I think it's really important, the idea of asking why we do what we do and how we do the things we do and what we do and why it is important. It's easy to go through life just really busy doing a lot of things without really having a sense of purpose to it. So there's 4 lessons I learned from this book, and the first was the idea of inspiration over manipulation. I think in our world, manipulation is almost an easier way to go. It's the shortcut. It's doing the things to get people to agree with you or to buy your product or to put such a short timeline on things that people can't take the time to work through things and make a decision. And it's an easy thing. Well, you might miss out. Well, you know what? You're not living your life to the fullest, but at the same time, it's kind of disrespecting the person, allowing them to make a decision that is fully theirs. Instead, it's manipulating people into that. But at the same time, inspiration is the long road, but at the same time, I think it's the one that brings the most fulfillment. It's asking people to come on board with what you're doing, not because it's easy or because they're being pressured into it, because they really want to. And part of that's really understanding what your why is and why this is important to you. And that's something I've had to learn as I've been working on my website. I've had to really define why I'm here. Why am I doing these videos? Why do I care about this stuff? And why do I want to share it? And for me, a lot of it is the idea that I have learned some really hard lessons, and I would really like to share some of the things I learned from it to help you with your own self-care, to help you with your own creativity, and put you in a place where you are successful. And that really is the main reason that I am doing these videos, because I spent a lot of time in a kind of a hard place, and having people who fed into my life was a huge reason that I am where I am today, and I am very, very thankful for them. And so I hope as you follow this website that you will feel inspired over manipulated, and that's why this idea of manipulation over inspiration was so important to me as I was reading this book. It is also really important to trust ourselves. And that was the second lesson I learned from this book. And it wasn't something that Simon Sinek spoke about directly, but it was the idea that we often have these gut feelings. He talks about the idea of the limbic brain, and the idea that the limbic brain is the thing that gives us that gut feeling that helps us make those decisions. Because let's be honest, most of our decisions are not made completely off of facts. If you had every single phone on the market and were told to choose one, you would look at the features, you would look at the things they have to offer, but really at the end of the day, it's how does it feel in your hand? Do you like the color? Some of those more emotional choices that might be the difference between buying one particular phone or the other. And he talks about the idea that this is very normal for who we are, that if we looked at only the logical thing, we would spend so much time in anxiety and overwhelm, and that the idea that the limbic brain and that gut feeling is actually something that is a positive thing. It's just understanding that's how we were designed. That's the way our chemistry is. And instead of looking at it as being, well, I'm just always making emotional decisions, instead it's looking at it from the perspective of, you know what, this isn't here to harm me. This is actually here to help me make the decisions I need to make in my life. And so for me, the idea of trusting yourself, being able to embrace that instead of always feeling like that's a negative thing, is really important. The third thing that really stuck out in this book was the importance of authenticity. Simon speaks about the idea that consistency and authenticity builds trust, and how important it is for us to be authentic in what we do and in what we say. It's easy for us to say a lot of things, but really our actions and our words must line up, otherwise it isn't authentic. And I thought it was really important that in any sort of leadership and any sort of business, that's a really important thing that we learn to find our authentic selves. It doesn't mean we necessarily have to overshare with everyone, but it's one of those things of showing some authenticity in what we believe and how we act. So the fourth thing I learned from this book was the idea of leadership and trust. Simon speaks about the idea that people will follow us not because they have to, but because they want to, and that many leaders don't really understand that concept. My experience with the corporate world was that leadership was forced on you. People looked at it from the perspective of, I have the corner office, I'm making more money, and I can make your life miserable, so you have to follow me, instead of the idea that by being a servant leader, by actually showing kindness to their employees, that they would have people who are committed to follow them and be able to do good work for them. And my experience was that when you have people who are trying to force their leadership onto you, it brings up that bullying, manipulation, and often I had veiled threats, and that for me was not a good thing. It was the idea of performance, of forced performance over me being able to understand what their goals were and their authenticity in their role, so that I could come alongside and join them in what their mission was. So when we talk about leadership and building trust, how do we form trust? It's often through what our beliefs and values are. I was in a workshop this weekend for art where I ran into a group that I actually found that my beliefs and my values were very similar to theirs. And the fun times I had with them, because it was so interesting that I connected with a group of people that I had just met, and we all came from all different walks of life and all different ages. And it was really authentic, and it was really great fun, and it really made me think about Simon's book and about the idea of those values and beliefs are really the foundation of trust, and that in our workplaces, in our relationships, if there is that sense of trust, that sense of values and belief, it goes such a long way for us to be able to trust each other. And it also allows us to really look at our leaders and get on board with what they're doing, just because of the fact that we know they are authentic in their actions and that they can be trusted. I hope you have enjoyed this video and that you have learned something from this book review. If you'd like to see the full article, you can visit my website at www.hopalongstudio.com. I would love for you to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the notifications so you don't miss out on any other videos. I hope that you have a really great week, and I will see you next time.